The first thing she noticed was that he didn't rush. Men who were unsure always rushed. Men who doubted hesitated. Jonah Whittaker did neither. He stood in front of her with the patience of someone who had already decided how this would end. She was tied to a dead cottonwood at the edge of his property, wrists bound so tight the rope burned into her skin. Her boots were gone. Her dress was torn along the hem, stiff with dust and blood. One eye was swelling shut. The sun hung low, thick and red, pressing heat into her skull. "Please," she said. Her voice barely made it past her lips. "Please, let me go." Jonah tilted his head, studying her like a problem he'd solved days ago. "You already said that. Saying it again won't change anything." He walked a slow circle around her, each step deliberate, boots crunching against dry earth. He stopped behind her, close enough that she could smell him, leather, sweat, gun oil. "Do you know what people say about this land?" he asked. She swallowed. "No." He laughed softly. "They say it belongs to me." She flinched when he grabbed her hair and forced her head back, making her look up at him. "And when something belongs to me," Jonah continued, "I decide what happens to it." He let go. Her head dropped forward, breath shaking. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't fear-driven violence. This was a man who enjoyed control. If you're still watching, subscribe now. You don't want to miss where this goes. Jonah crouched in front of her and pulled a knife from his belt. Her breath caught. "Relax," he said. "If I wanted you dead, you'd already be quiet." He sliced the rope at her ankles just enough for her legs to collapse. She cried out as her knees slammed into the dirt. Jonah watched her struggle to stay upright. "You see," he said calmly, "pain teaches faster than mercy." She looked up at him through tears. "I didn't steal anything," she said. "I didn't hurt anyone. You didn't have to do this." Jonah's expression hardened. "Everything that crosses this land takes something. Water, shade, safety, time." He leaned closer. "So I take something back." She shook her head violently. "You don't understand. If you keep me here, it won't end with me." That made him smile. Everyone says that. He stood, wiped the blade on his pants, and turned away. "You'll stay tied until I decide what lesson you're here to teach." The wind shifted as the sun dropped lower, turning the sky the color of old blood. She tested the ropes again, slowly, carefully. The fibers cut deeper into her wrists, tearing skin this time. She didn't scream. She bit down on it, breath coming sharp through her nose. Pain was expected. Pain meant she was still here. Jonah watched. He hadn't gone far. He leaned against the fence post a short distance away, arms crossed, lantern hanging from one hand. He was waiting for something, panic, begging, collapse. When she didn't give him that, irritation crept into his face. "Go on," he said. "Pull harder." She stopped moving and looked up at him. "You want to see me break," she said quietly. "That's why you're still standing there." Jonah stepped closer. "No," he replied. "I want to see who you are when you realize no one's coming." She swallowed. "I didn't come here to be saved." That caught his attention. He stopped a few feet from her. "Then why did you come?" She hesitated, not of fear, but calculation. "Because this land doesn't let people pass anymore," she said. "It makes them stay." Jonah laughed, loud this time. "You expect me to believe the dirt dragged you in?" She met his eyes. "I expect you to believe that every man who thinks he owns this place ends up standing where I am." The smile vanished from his face. In 2 steps he was on her. He struck her again, harder this time, backhand. She cried out as her vision exploded into white sparks. Her knees buckled, but the ropes kept her upright. Jonah grabbed her by the collar and shoved her against the dead tree. "Don't speak in riddles," he growled. "I don't have patience for superstition." Her breath came ragged. "You don't need to believe it," she whispered. "You're already part of it." That was when Jonah lost what little restraint he had left. He drew his knife and pressed the flat of the blade against her throat, not cutting, just enough to promise it. "Say another word like that," he said, "and I'll make sure you never get to finish the thought." Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't look afraid. She looked sorry. Jonah finally stepped away, not because she convinced him, because he was done listening. He shoved her back, tied an extra knot into the ropes, and planted the lantern where it cast long, warped shadows across her face. "Stay awake," he said. "Night gets dangerous for people who sleep." He turned and walked toward the house. She watched him go, shoulders trembling, not from cold but from effort. The moment he disappeared into the darkness, she sagged against the tree, finally letting herself breathe. Minutes passed, then hours. Coyotes howled somewhere far off. The wind carried the sound across the field like laughter. Her wrists were numb now. That scared her more than the pain. She pulled again, harder. The rope didn't give. Instead, the tree creaked. She froze. The dead cottonwood hadn't moved all day. Now, under her weight, it let out a low groan, deep, ancient, like wood remembering something it didn't want to. "No," she whispered, "not yet." The ground beneath her bare feet felt colder, damp. That shouldn't have been possible. Inside the house, Jonah poured himself a drink. His hands shook as the bottle tipped. He told himself it was nothing, just the day catching up with him, just another trespasser, another problem handled. Still, he didn't sit, he paced. The house felt wrong. The walls creaked where they shouldn't. The floor felt softer underfoot, like it wasn't fully settled. He went to the sink to splash water on his face. That's when he saw it. On the mirror, written in something dark and powdery, "You kept her." Jonah stepped back so fast he nearly fell. "That's not funny," he muttered, though no one was there. He wiped at the words. They smeared, but didn't disappear. Jonah returned to the field with his rifle in hand. She heard him before she saw him. The rhythm of his boots had changed, faster now, sharper. "What did you do?" he demanded. She lifted her head slowly. "I stayed," she said, "just like you wanted." The ground shifted again, more noticeable this time. Jonah raised the rifle, aiming it at her chest. "If this is some trick—" "Shoot me," she interrupted. "See what happens." His finger tightened on the trigger, but he didn't pull it, because the earth moved. Not violently, not suddenly. It leaned. The dirt around the tree cracked, thin lines spreading outward like veins beneath skin. Jonah took a step back. "What the hell is this?" She looked down at the ground, then back at him. This is what comes from men who don't let go. The ropes around her wrists loosened, just a little. Enough. She pulled. One hand slipped free. Jonah reacted instantly, charging forward, grabbing her by the hair and slamming her back against the trunk. "You're not leaving," he shouted. The ground answered him with a low, hollow sound, like something waking up. Jonah slammed her back against the tree so hard the air left her lungs in a sharp, broken gasp. The dead cottonwood groaned again, louder this time, its dry bark flaking under the impact. Dust rained down over both of them. Jonah barely noticed. His focus was narrow now, tight and violent. "You think this is some kind of game?" he shouted, fist twisted in her hair. "You think you scare me with shaking dirt and stories?" She struggled to breathe, chest heaving against the ropes that still held her other wrist. Her free hand clawed weakly at his arm, not to hurt him, just to make space, just to live. "I didn't want it to be you," she choked out. That stopped him. Not fully, not enough, but something flickered behind his eyes. "What does that mean?" he demanded. She swallowed, forcing air back into her lungs. "This land takes what refuses to let go," she said. "It's always been that way, before fences, before names, before men like you decided ownership was the same thing as control." Jonah let out a sharp, humorless laugh. "I built this place," he snapped. With my hands, with blood. Nothing here decides anything without me." He shoved her again, harder this time, then stepped back as if to prove a point, to show her he wasn't afraid to let go. She sagged against the ropes, head falling forward. For a brief moment, Jonah saw it. Not a threat, not a trick, just a woman, exhausted, bleeding, tied to a tree because he chose power over doubt. His jaw tightened. This was the moment where he could have untied her, walked away, pretended none of this ever happened. He knew it. That knowledge burned, and he hated her for it. "You don't get to turn this into something bigger than it is," Jonah said, voice low now, controlled again. "You trespassed, you paid the price, that's all." He bent down, picked up the loose rope end she'd freed, and retied it, this time tighter, angrier. The fibers bit deep into her skin. She cried out despite herself. Jonah ignored it. "Whatever you think is happening," he finished, "it ends when I say it ends." As he turned away, the ground beneath his boots shifted. Not a crack, a settling, like weight redistributing. Jonah froze. Slowly he looked down. The soil around his feet was darker now, damp, breathing out a cold metallic smell that didn't belong in dry country. Behind him, the woman whispered, "You felt that." He spun around, rage flashing back to the surface. "Shut up." But his voice lacked something it had before. Certainty. The night deepened. Clouds rolled in, swallowing the moon and pressing darkness closer to the ground. Jonah stayed near her now, rifle in hand, pacing back and forth like a guard protecting a prisoner from something else entirely. She watched him quietly. Every few minutes the earth shifted again, small movements, subtle, enough to be felt but not seen, enough to gnaw. "You don't sleep much, do you?" she said suddenly. Jonah stopped. "Sleep gets men killed." "No," she replied softly. "Guilt does." That earned her another strike, this one with the rifle stock. She screamed as pain exploded across her ribs, dropping her to her knees again. The rope snapped tight, keeping her upright, forcing her to take it. Jonah stood over her, breathing hard. "Don't talk to me about guilt," he said. "You don't know what I've done to keep this place standing." She coughed, blood spotting her lips. "That's the problem," she whispered. "You think keeping it standing is the same as keeping it alive." The ground answered with a deeper movement this time, a low, rolling sound beneath them. Jonah took a step back without realizing he'd done it. For the first time since he'd tied her to the tree, fear slipped through his cruelty. And she saw it. "It's listening now," she said. "It heard your answer." Jonah raised the rifle again. His hands were shaking. "If you don't shut your mouth, I swear, you already chose. You just haven't paid yet." Silence fell. Thick, pressurized. Then, somewhere beneath the field, something shifted its weight. The sound didn't come from her. That was the first thing Jonah realized. It came from the ground itself. A deep, splitting crack rolled beneath the field, loud enough to drown out the wind. The dirt around the dead cottonwood shifted violently, throwing Jonah off balance. He stumbled back, boots sliding as the soil collapsed inward, forming a shallow ring around the tree. She screamed, not in fear but in shock, as the ropes around her wrists suddenly went slack. The knot hadn't loosened, the tree had. Its roots tore free from the earth with a long, tortured groan, the dead cottonwood leaning sharply to one side. The sudden movement yanked her forward, snapping the remaining rope against the trunk. She hit the ground hard. For a second, neither of them moved. Then survival took over. She rolled, scrambling to her feet, fingers numb and useless but free. Pain flared through her ribs as she ran, barefoot across the field, breath ripping from her chest. Jonah recovered fast. "Stop!" he shouted, already raising the rifle. The shot cracked the night. Dirt exploded inches from her heel. She didn't look back. Her lungs burned, her vision tunneled. Every step felt wrong, like the ground was softening beneath her, resisting her escape even as it had freed her. Jonah chased her. Not out of fear, out of fury. He dropped the rifle and ran full speed, boots pounding, breath ragged with effort and rage. She was fast, but injured, disoriented, half blind in the dark. He caught her near the fence. His hand closed around her arm, wrenching her back so hard her shoulder screamed. She fell, hitting the ground again, the impact knocking the breath from her lungs in a broken sob. Jonah stood over her, chest heaving, eyes wild. "You don't get to run," he snarled, "not after what you started." She tried to crawl away. He kicked her ribs, once, twice. She curled inward, gasping, tears cutting lines through the dust on her face. "You could have stopped," she whispered between breaths. "You still can." Jonah grabbed her by the collar and dragged her upright, forcing her to stand. "Don't," he said through clenched teeth. "Talk to me like I'm the one who did this." He shoved her toward the tree again. The ground trembled beneath them, harder now, uneven. The fence posts nearby leaned at strange angles, as if the land itself were slowly forgetting how to stay solid. "You trespassed," Jonah continued, dragging her step by step. "You lied. You threatened me on my own land." "I warned you," she said. "There's a difference." He slammed her against the trunk once more and retied her hands, this time with shaking fingers. The rope slipped. He cursed, tightened it again, pulling until she cried out. The moment her wrists were secured, the earth shifted violently. Jonah staggered, barely keeping his balance. "Damn it!" he shouted, spinning toward her. "What are you?" She looked up at him, face streaked with blood and tears. "I'm the one who came before it chose you." That sentence landed harder than any blow. Jonah froze. The words echoed in his head, twisting, rearranging themselves into something he didn't want to understand. "That's not how choices work," he said slowly. "You don't get to pass them on." She laughed weakly. "Neither do you." The ground beneath Jonah's boots sank slightly, enough for him to feel it grip the soles. He yanked his foot free, heart pounding now for reasons he couldn't deny. "You think I don't see what this is doing to you?" she said. "You feel it, you hear it, and you're still holding the rope." Jonah looked down at his hands. The rope burned into his palms, fibers darkened with her blood. For a moment, his grip loosened. This was the second moment, the one where cruelty wasn't ignorance anymore. It was choice. Jonah's jaw clenched. He tightened the knot instead. "You don't decide who I am," he said, voice low and furious. "I do." The earth answered with a deep, rolling sound that traveled beneath the field, beneath the house, beneath everything Jonah thought he owned. Somewhere below, something shifted closer, and this time, Jonah knew it wasn't listening anymore. It was preparing. Jonah stepped back from the tree, breathing hard, as if distance alone could restore order. The field no longer felt like his. The ground shifted beneath his boots in slow, uneven pulses, not violent, deliberate, like something large adjusting its weight beneath the surface. He raised the rifle again, aiming not at her but at the earth near her feet. "This ends now," he said. "Whatever this is, I put it down." He fired. The shot tore into the soil, sending dirt and stone into the air. The impact echoed across the ranch. For a brief moment, nothing happened. Jonah exhaled sharply, relief flashing across his face. Then the earth answered. A deep Leah sound rolled outward from the impact point. The soil split in thin, jagged lines that raced toward the tree, crawling up its roots like veins. She gasped, not in fear, but recognition. "You shouldn't have done that," she said quietly. Jonah backed away, rifle shaking in his hands. "Shut up," he snapped. "You don't get to tell me what I should have done." The ground dipped beneath him, forcing him to stumble. He caught himself on one knee, palm pressed into cold, damp dirt that shouldn't have existed there. For the first time, panic crept into his voice. "What do you want from me?" She lifted her head, meeting his eyes. "I wanted you to let me go," she said. "Now it wants you to understand why you didn't." The tree groaned again, its roots shifting deeper, pulling downward. The ropes tightened around her wrists without Jonah touching them, dragging her closer to the trunk. Jonah scrambled to his feet and rushed forward, grabbing the rope, pulling back with all his strength. "No," he growled, "you don't take things from me." The rope burned into his hands. The ground pulled harder. For a moment they were locked there, Jonah straining backward, the land pulling forward, the woman caught between them. She looked at him, eyes steady despite the pain. "You still have a choice," she said. "You always did." Jonah felt it then, not just fear, shame, the realization that this wasn't punishment for cruelty, but for refusal, for holding on when letting go was the only mercy left. His grip trembled, and still he didn't release the rope. "I won't be replaced," he said through clenched teeth. The earth answered by pulling closer. The ground stopped moving. That silence was worse than the shaking. Jonah froze, still gripping the rope, chest rising and falling in sharp, uneven breaths. Sweat ran down his spine despite the cold creeping into the night. "Say something," he demanded, voice hoarse. "If this land wants something, then say it." She didn't answer right away. Her body hung heavier against the tree now, as if gravity itself had increased. The ropes creaked under the strain. "It already did," she said finally. "You just didn't like the cost." Jonah laughed weakly. "You expect me to believe this place wants me, after everything I've done to keep it alive?" "You didn't keep it alive," she replied. "You kept it obedient." That cut deeper than any blade. Jonah looked around the field. Fence posts leaned at unnatural angles. Cracks split the earth in long, wandering lines. The ranch house in the distance sagged slightly, its porch dipping like it was slowly sinking. "This land fed men long before you claimed it. It only asks one thing in return." Jonah's fingers tightened around the rope again. "And that is?" She met his gaze. "When it tells you to let go, you let go." The ground trembled lightly, as if in agreement. Jonah shook his head. "That's not a choice," he said. "That's surrender." She breathed out slowly. "They're the same thing to men like you." Anger flared, sudden and sharp. "I built this place from nothing. I bled for it, buried friends here. I won't lose it because of some trespasser in a patch of dirt with opinions." The earth responded. Not with violence, with pressure. The soil around Jonah's boots compacted, hardening, locking him in place. He tried to pull free and nearly fell. Panic finally broke through his pride. "I can fix this," he said quickly. "I'll do better. I'll change how things are done, I swear." She closed her eyes. "You're still bargaining," she said. "That's how I know you won't." Jonah looked at her, truly looked at her, and saw it. Acceptance. Not relief, not hope, just the quiet understanding of someone who had already lost. "If I let you go," he asked, voice barely steady, "does it stop?" She opened her eyes again. "It doesn't stop. It moves on." Jonah swallowed. "And me?" The ground shifted again, closer this time. "It depends," she replied, "on whether you let go because you must or because you finally choose to." Jonah stared at the rope in his hands. The fibers were dark with blood, and the land waited. Jonah made his decision the same way he'd made every other one in his life, by force. He wrapped the rope once more around his fist and pulled hard, dragging her closer to the tree, as if proximity alone could anchor reality back into place. "I won't be replaced," he said through clenched teeth. "Not by you, not by this land." The ground responded immediately. The soil beneath the tree collapsed inward, forming a shallow pit. She cried out as the earth tugged at her legs, pulling her down inch by inch. Jonah fought back, bracing his boots against the dirt, muscles screaming as he strained against the pole. "Let go!" she gasped. "This is the last time it will ask." Jonah roared and pulled harder. The rope snapped. Not in her hands, in his. The sudden release sent him stumbling backward. He fell hard, the wind knocked from his lungs, staring up at the blackened sky. For a brief, terrible second, nothing happened. Then the ground beneath him gave way. Jonah screamed as the earth opened, swallowing his legs up to the knees. He clawed at the soil, tearing his nails bloody, dragging himself forward. "No, no, wait!" His voice cracked, panic stripping away the cruelty. She watched from the tree as the land took its payment. "You could have walked away," she said quietly. "That's what mercy was." The soil climbed higher, gripping his waist, his chest. Jonah's breath came in sharp, broken gasps. "Please," he choked, "please, let me go." The words echoed back to him. The ground didn't answer. It closed. The morning came slow and pale. The field was still. The dead cottonwood stood upright again, its roots settled deep and silent. The ropes lay cut at its base. The ranch house in the distance leaned, abandoned, already beginning to sink. No trace of Jonah Whitaker remained. Only the land, waiting. And you already know. Subscribe and like this video before the ground chooses again.